Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to look at how to create a virtual network within Azure infrastructure. If you are studying for the AZ-900 exam, this lab is going to be useful for you and it's going to be hands-on. We are going to use the Mac machine to do the lab, and this is updated on November 30th. Okay, so what we are doing, there is a Microsoft Learning GitHub account. Okay, they have created 23 different labs for specifically for Microsoft Azure Fundamental exam, which is AZ-900, and we are going through every single of them one after another. And in this video today, we are going to look at the Azure virtual networks. Okay, for the lab and for the exam, it would be good to have some understanding of TCP/IP networking and IPv4 address, different classes of address, A, B, C, CIDR notation, how they work, and definitely understand the difference between the private IP addresses and the public IP addresses and their ranges. You do not have to be a master of IP addresses for the AZ-900 exam, but more you learn about the IPv4 address space and how it works, and especially the CIDR notation, it will be really useful because IP address and networking is an integral part of infrastructure. You will be using them for many advanced features, like when you're configuring load balancers, scaling, creating traffic manager, and even you are connecting multiple networks, gateway, firewall. So you will need to have a very good understanding of IPv4. So spend time, but again, as I said, for the 900 exam, you do not have to be like the master network person to be able to pass this exam. Okay, so this lab, so there are really three tasks in there. We'll create a virtual network. Okay, once we create the virtual network, we're going to deploy a couple of virtual machines in that network, and really once we deploy the network, we're going to test the connection. So that's about it. So make sure that we're able to deploy in a network, and the machines, they're able to connect. So you really need the network, a virtual network where you want to segregate the virtual network from other networks, and you want to deploy resources and they should be able to talk to each other. So let's just get started with the lab. For this lab, you will need one Microsoft Azure account. If you do not have one, please go ahead and create a free account and you should be good to go. So the first thing you need to know, you need to get into the Azure portal, and this time, even before deploying the virtual machine, we are going to create the virtual network. So that is the resource that we are most interested in. And then when we deploy the virtual machines, we will be able to select the virtual network that we are going to create. So let's go to my Azure environment. So I'm in here, and in the search bar, I'm just going to search for the virtual networks. And notice that I have virtual networks. There are two instances that I can see, and another one, it says classic. Classic means that is really old version, that when Azure first started, they had this classic way of deploying virtual network. I would not recommend you to use that one unless you have a very specific reason to use it. Always go with the one which does not say the classic. So that's the most recent, most modern version of the virtual network. So I'm just going to click on that one, and this experience should be very similar to any other resource deployments. It's telling you that here you are in the virtual network blade. You're in the default directory. So I'm just going to click on add, and that should give me a window to configure the way I want to configure my virtual network. Okay, so here it's a little bit of description of this resource that you're going to create. Azure Virtual Network is the fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. VirtualNet enables many types of Azure resources, such as the Azure Virtual Machine, to securely communicate with each other. So security is important. So this is how you can create boundaries, and you can logically separate different network from each other. So with each other, the internet and on-premises networks. VNet is similar to a traditional network you would operate in your own data center, but brings in with additional benefits of Azure infrastructure such as scale, availability, and isolation. And I would recommend that you click on this link, learn more about the virtual networks, and do some more studying of what it is, what it can do for you, just for your own understanding. Now let's go back to the lab. In this one, we're going to configure this network in Azure the way they are asking us to configure in the lab. We're going to name it the VNet. So let's just go back and actually let's see. Name, address space, resource group is my VNet. So let's start there because that's the first thing we need to configure. So it's subscription. It's my subscription. It's already loaded. For resource group, that's the resource group that we're gonna create. Name, let's come back, get the name now. It's a VNet1, and here's my name. And we can deploy it in the East US. There are many regions available. Based on your own requirement, you can deploy this virtual network in any other region you like. For the lab, East US is fine. Address space is 10.100/16. That's the address range that we're going to use. Let's see, here we are good. So next, go to IP addresses and 10.100/16. If you see, this is already in there. That's the default 10.100/16. Let me make sure 10.1.0. So we do not really have to change anything, at least in my case. If you have something different in your IP space, you just need to delete that one and just paste your CID notation one more time. So when you have that IPv6 space, for the lab you don't need it. You can spend some more time on it, what you need to do here. So that's for you to do at your own time. So let's come back over here. Resource group, we have default subnet. So subnet is another thing. So when you create a virtual network, you gotta have at least one subnet inside. So if I delete this subnet, you will not be able to create the virtual network. And a default subnet is always created when you provide or when you try to create a virtual network. So the IP space is automatically created and a default subnet is automatically created. Here, if you want, you can add multiple other subnets in here. Okay, so we already have one. If I want another subnet, okay, so I can, if I like, I can put 10.2.0.10.1, sorry, 1.0.1. Let's see if that is inside. This is not. So if you have any problem, any mistakes in your CID notation, okay, that will show up here. So let's see, if you do 1, and then if you provide 1.1.0/24, okay, this is still not in your address space. It says the name must begin with a letter or, okay, so that's a subnet name. I'm sorry. So this is call it say subnet 2 maybe. Okay, so come back over here. So do 10.1.1.0/24. Okay, so what, so this is another subnet that if I want I can create. Okay, so if all I need to do is click on add, and that will add the subnet for me. If you have a problem with the subnet name or the subnet address range, it will not allow you to add that subnet. So you can also click on that one. It's also going to tell you how many addresses are available. Like in this one, if I click on default, you know that you have 251 addresses that will be available in this particular subnet address range, and there will be 5 addresses that will be reserved for Azure addresses. So you will not be able to use those IP addresses in that particular subnet. Okay, so just keep that in mind in a /24 CID notation. Okay, really there are 251 plus 5, so 256 number of IPs are available. but really 251 is the number that you can use, that many number of resources that you can deploy and have a unique IP. Okay, we'll talk about service endpoint at a later time. Okay, just keep in mind, so that's something else that you can, if you want to remove a subnet, you can just click on it, click remove subnet, and that's gone. So come back over here. So we have configured it the way we wanted. Okay, so that all looks good. Um, and that's all. We just need to review and create, and that should create that virtual network for us. Let's come back over here now. Okay, let's go to security. Security in here, bastion hosts, DDoS protection, disable, and firewall is disable. If you want, you can enable any of these. Bastion hosts will go back at a different time. Standard deduction, the basic is actually always enabled. So standard is something where you are going to end up paying some more money. So I'm just going to go with the default options in here for now. Next, go to tags. If you want, you can add some tags in here and value, and then review and create, and that should be all. And just review. So you are using the particular subscription. This is your resource group name. That is the name of the virtual network that you have provided. It will be deployed in the East US. The address space that you are using is 10.100.16. There will be one subnet where you are taking 256 IP addresses out of this big address range. 251 of them will be useful, and that could be an exam question. And DDoS protection, look at that. It says basic is already enabled. And then you hit create, and that should create the virtual network for you. It shouldn't take very long. It's probably take a minute or so to create this resource. Let's come back here. Let's see what next we need to do. So next two things, we'll be deploying a virtual machine, and we will deploy in that resource group. We'll call the virtual machine 1 as VM1, and we'll be using a Windows Server 2019 for our deployment. And we are going to use the VNet one that we are creating right at the moment. Once the first one is done, we are going to deploy another virtual machine. We're just going to call it VM2. We're going to use the same virtual network, and we're going to call the IP address as VM2 IP. And let's go back over here. So look at that, deployment is complete. I can go to the resource at this time. So once I go to the resource, and this is again the virtual network, how do you know? Here's an icon that is unique for virtual network, and also I have virtual network clearly written down there right below the resource that we have created. And again, this information should match. Here's your address space, DNS server. It's coming from the Azure DNS service. This is the resource group. Location is the East US. There is subscription ID, DDoS protection. There are a whole bunch of things that we'll look at some of that at a later point. Let's see what else is important. So here, subnets can go. Here's my default subnet, and again, 251 is a number that you should remember for the exam and for your own work. Address space, again, if you can go there, and here this is the total number of addresses if you're using the -16 CIDR notation, 65,536. So that's kind of the number that you also remember. If you don't remember down to the very minute number, I always kind of remember 65,000 is what my ballpark number if I'm using a 16 CIDR notation. And 251 and 250 is for my /24. You know, if you forget, just round up and kind of remember the bulk part numbers that are available, IPs that are available to you. So we have now a subnet that, and connected devices. If you go there, there is nothing because we have not deployed any resources yet. So come back over here and look for the virtual machines. And I can search for virtual machines. Here's my virtual machines. I can click on that virtual machine, And what I'll do, I'll click on add again, and then virtual machine, and we will be deploying two different virtual machines in that particular resource group. So this time we are going to select the MyRJVNet resource group, and the first one we are going to call it VM1 as per the lab suggestion, right? We're going to use the same East-US region. Availability we don't care about, so no infrastructure availability required. We are going to use Windows 2019 data center, and let's see what they are not saying what kind of SKU to use, so we can probably use anything that I like. So this is red means I cannot really use that one. Okay, so I just have to use something else. So let's come back over here. Let's choose something like that's a little bit cheaper, maybe not too cheap. I'm just gonna go with this one. Maybe B2MS is good. Let's select that one and see that red mark is gone, so it should be good. Here I'm gonna provide a username and a secure password, and I'm going to repeat the secure password. Okay, if they match, you will see that green tick mark, so they're all good. I'm going to keep the RDP port open, and I think that should be all that we need. Let's come back over here. Looks good. Okay, so networking, it should have already selected my VNet one by default because I have chosen the right resource group, the same resource group where we have created the virtual network. Just double verify. Let's come back over here. Uh, Resource, so we just go to the disk. We do not need to change anything over here. Go to networking and look at that. VNet is already selected. Okay, if I want, I can create a new virtual network, but I don't need to because this is where I would like the virtual machine to be deployed. Subnet, it's because I have only one subnet, it's choosing that subnet. If you had multiple, you could have selected any of those. Public IP, VM1-IP, that is fine. REST, I don't need to worry about. The default options are fine. Management, you don't have to do anything. Usually I just disable the boot diagnostics. I don't need that one. And advanced, you don't need to do anything. Just go with the defaults. Tags, you don't need anything. For best practices, you should be adding tags and clearly identifying the virtual machine, which is very good for even a cost perspective when you want to know which machine is costing you how much. In a business scenario, you will be able to use the tags. So the validation is successful. I'm just going to hit the create button, and it should start the deployment of the first virtual machine. Okay, so this time I just don't need, I just say not now. When this is going on, you don't really have to wait for the deployment to be done. If you really want, you can go back and you can click on the virtual machine again, and you can start another deployment while the other deployment is going on. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so let's do that. And again, we're going to select the MyRJVNet, and in this case we're going to call it VM2. Okay, VM2, right? um, and then still the same is TOS. We do not need any redundancy. We're not working on the availability just yet. We are going to choose the same 2019 data center, and it says that size is now not available to me, so I'm gonna choose something else, and let's see if that size is available to me. So that one looks like the red mark is gone, so you should be able to use that one. uh, Username, again I'm going to provide a secure password. Okay, if the passwords are again the matches, you will see these tick marks. They're available. Port 3389, I'm going to keep that open. And disk, I'm just going to go with the default for this particular lab. Networking, it should again automatically choose that particular virtual network we created at the beginning of the lab. Rest of them is going to create the public IP. It's just going to call that VM2-IP, which is good. Subnet is again, I have only one subnet defined in that particular virtual network, so it's automatically got that one. So everything looks good. Go to management. Actually come back over here, disable the boot diagnostics. Go to advanced tags if you need anything, and then review plus create. And it should go through the validation and shouldn't have any problems. So validation is successful. It can create and it should start the deployment of this particular virtual machine. Over here, you can click that one. And now you see there are two different deployment is going on. Okay, this deployment, okay, this is a deployment that we started a little bit ago, and now it looks like that deployment is just got successful, this completed, and this deployment is still in progress. So to go to any of the deploy resources, I can click on the go to resource button and it should take me to VM1, right? How do you know? First of all, the icon that's unique to the virtual machine, and also it's saying just under the VM1 name of the virtual machine, it's saying that it's a virtual machine. So here is my IP address and it is in a running state. So we have again deployed a virtual machine using the virtual network that we have created. Let's go back to the lab. So we are done with task 2. So the last thing that we needed to do is test the connection. So this is another thing that you should remember, that when you deploy a virtual machine within Azure, your ICMP connections are blocked by default. So if you go there and try to ping one machine to another, you will not be able to ping, and you may think there is something crazy going on with my network, and that is not the case. The ICMP is disabled by default. What you need to do, you need to log into the machines, okay, and then what you need to do, you need to um, you need to enable the ping. So what they're saying over here, if you go inside and do a ping, you're going to see the request timeout. The timeout is going to return because the ping is disabled by default. So this is the command that you will be running to enable the ICMP protocol, ICMP v4 within the machines. Once you have allowed the ICMP, you will be able to ping. So let's just do that. So let's make sure that both machines are deployed. Let's come back over here, and yeah, so all of the machines are now deployed. So one machine, this one got this IP address. So to connect to the machine, I'm using a Mac machine. I'm just going to download this RDP file, and I'm going to use the public IP address because I'm not on the Azure network right now. Just going to click on the RDP file, come over here, that's the VM RDP. I'm just going to open this one, and this came up, so I'm just going to provide my username and my super secret password, and it should connect me, and it's asking me, hey, your server certificate we can verify, can you continue? I say yeah, let's just connect it, and it should establish the RDP connection, and it's just doing it, and we are going inside the first virtual machine, the VM1, and once it's loaded, we should try to ping the other virtual machine VM2 and see what's going on. So let's just give it a second to load the server manager and everything. So the screen that you are seeing right now, it is inside the VM1 virtual machine that we just created, that is using the virtual network that we have created. And from here, if I go and open my PowerShell, actually, you know what? I'm going to open it with as admin mode. So PowerShell, and then right click on it and run as administrator. I'm going to do that. And So ping VM1. So this is my own machine. So own machine, you should be able to get the reply back, and so you are getting the reply back because it's you're trying to ping your own machine, right? So now let's try to ping the VM2. Okay, in most cases you would expect that if you are on the same subnet you should be able to ping that machine, but you are getting that the request is timing out because you cannot ping that machine. So before we do anything, uh, we would expect the same behavior from the other machine as well, right? If I from the other machine, if I try to ping VM1, I would see that our request will be denied. So let's do this. Let's just copy this one and enable ping inside this machine. Okay, so let's just go to this machine back. Where is it? Where's my machine? To that machine. Okay, so we are here. So I'm just going to paste the new net firewall rule, display name allow ICMP in protocol ICMP v4. So what I just did in this virtual machine, okay, which is VM1, and you can always type host name and it should tell you which virtual machine you are on. So here I have now allowed the ICMP connection. That means that from VM2, if I try to connect to the machine, I should be able to ping this machine. So let's now go to where? Go back to Safari, go back to our virtual machines, go to home, go to virtual machine and look, find the virtual machine 2. Just the virtual machine 2, click on that one and let's find the IP address, copy that one, and we can actually click on the RDP and download the RDP file for that one as well. So I have the RDP2, so let's just double click that one. It opens. Here is the connection, so let's just log into the other machine. And again, certificate, do you trust? Yes, I do. Some establishing session to the other virtual machine now. And let's log in. Just give it. This machine is a little bit less powerful, so it could be a little bit slower than the other machine that's running right now. Just be patient. And once it's logged in, it will open up your server manager as well. So just give it maybe 10 more seconds to load that up, and it will give you the network option. I usually just say yes. You can say no if you like, if you don't want your machine to be discoverable in the network. And as soon as I usually close this one. Okay, as soon as this is available, I can now go open again up my PowerShell. For the ping, you can use your command prompt as well. I just need the PowerShell for the enabling the ICMP packet, so I'm just using the PowerShell. So again, from here, let's just, as soon as I get the command prompt, and you can probably tell it's a little bit slower. I just typed hostname and it's still not there. Okay, so if I click now, you know that it's telling me that hostname is VM2. Again, I can always ping myself and I should get the packets back, and you see that I'm getting it back. Packet sent 4, receive 4. So all 4 packets came back, no problem. Now this time, if I ping the other virtual machine VM1, since I have already enabled ICMP packets in that machine, I should get responses back as well. So let's hit enter. And did I hit enter? I think I did. Yeah, I did enter now. And if you see, now from the other machine, we got all 4 packets back and everything looks good. So this virtual machine is now deployed in my network, and it is able to send packets and be able to communicate with the other machine. Now if you want just to be complete with the lab, you can go back to the lab again, copy this particular command, and come back over here. In this particular machine, you're still inside VM2. enable the ICMP1. Okay, didn't probably copy this. Let's copy this one more time and come back to which one do you want to go to? Not that one here. Which one do you want to go to? We want to go to VM2 and just run the same command that we ran in the other machine from the VM1. So this is now I just enabled the ICMP package for the VM2 as well. So at this time I can again go back to VM1, and if you remember last time we tried, we had the connection timeout ping v2. Okay, so I'm gonna run the command again, ping v2, and this time I should be able to get the packets back, and I should not have any problem connecting to VM2 from VM1. And that's what happened. We sent 4 packets, we received 4 packets, there's no loss, and everything is working fine. So in this lab, what we just did, we have created a virtual network, and we mostly used IPv4 address space. We learned how to create the virtual network and the subnet. Okay, and we have learned how to deploy virtual machines using that particular virtual network and the subnet. We have learned how to enable and test the connection between the virtual network and prove that we have proper connectivity between these machines. Okay, so that's all that you need for this particular lab. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave your valuable comments. One last thing I would like to say, that before you leave, if you're not going to use this lab, go back to your Azure environment, go back to the resource group. Okay, so you can really go to any of the virtual machines, go to the resource group right there, and I would delete the resource group because I know that I'm not going to use this resource group for anything else. So copy and then delete resource group, and this button is not available yet, so I'm going to put this name over here. Oh, that's copied too much, something else. So let's get rid of this one. Let's copy this name. Hopefully that copied properly. It's dead, so this delete button is now available to me. I hit delete, so it's going to delete all of the resources that we have deployed and created as part of this lab. Again, AZ-900 is an entry-level certification, so do your lab, understand the basics, uh, and just kind of think about what could be testable while you were doing this kind of labs, and you should be fine. Again, if you're studying for the exam, good luck. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Have a great and wonderful day. Thank you.